Yesterday we saw some pretty wild stuff, right? We saw some wild things happening in the Capitol building, and I want to give encouragement maybe to people who have a difference of opinion that, yeah, you can have your difference of opinion, and, you know, you're not a bad person for that. But I do want to speak into something that I think is important as well. Your when you see what, okay, I can't break everything down right now into freaking all the different things that happened yesterday, but I want to talk about just something specific, okay? So yesterday we saw what the media calls a riot, okay? So it's interesting to think to me, okay? So a person died, a government building was stormed, and things happened inside the building, obviously. Police were assaulted and stuff, and all that. Okay, those things happened, and that was called a riot yesterday by the media. So the first riot of the year happened because of Trump supporters. Now, I want to rewind for you back in 2020, December, all the way to, let's say, May 2020. Government buildings were stormed, people were killed, people were disenfranchised, and all that, right? But those were called peaceful protests. Now, the difference was, one was supposedly pro-Trump, which was, yesterday, which was a Trump rally, and the other one was social justice, BLM, Antifa stuff. Now, people actually literally took over entire cities, or entire blocks of cities, and police commissioners and the like they lost their jobs because they couldn't do their jobs. Governors and mayors allowed straight up chaos, but it was called a peaceful protest. Cities were burning. Little kids were getting blown away by black dudes. Black men were getting shot by other black men who were actually, ex-police officers were getting shot by black people looting. Women were getting assaulted, whether they're black, white, Mexican, whatever. We're getting assaulted by people, sexually assaulted by people. And then peaceful protests happened. And these were called peaceful protests. So the difference was that a peaceful protest is when one group of people do it, but then a riot is when another group of people do it. So the inconsistency there is really what my issue is. And this is what my issue has been this whole time, is that as truth is removed, people talk about my truth, subjective truth. The subjective truth, the subjectivity in it has led to an inconsistency of everything in the American establishment, what we have in our society. That includes who people can and can't have an opinion about and vote for. So right now, I have personally, by some of you, thank God, find out some of these people, I can just block them. But I'm a black, white supremacist, whatever, and then I'm a bad person for supporting the president. Well, if you understand something, that the people like myself, we have an opinion as well too. We have an opinion and we have a belief about what took place. And what actually happened yesterday was you had, not everybody could go, obviously, but you have upwards of 74 million people who feel disenfranchised because of subjective truth. We feel disenfranchised because what happened on November 3rd and what happened in the Georgia elections is something that doesn't make any sense. The truth of it is that you have people with affidavits, you have people with eyewitnesses, with videos, but then they're negated because of the bigger story, the narrative, that nothing happened. So the right that you have as an American citizen to be heard, to protest, to actually speak about what you saw, and then to vote about those things because you are protesting via your vote. Your voice is being removed. The media has turned on you. There is no voice there. There's no outlet for these people. There's no outlet for these folks who are basically marginalized. And this isn't a good thing. And I understand where people try to make the jump between the racial grievance and this political grievance, because there are some similarities there, but there's some differences there too. So when you have the folks who are, let's say, with the racial grievance group, who use racial grievances against everyone that's not black, then you have a set of people who are trying to benefit from the social unrest, and they're using their skin color against other people. Okay, that's not what MLK did. His issue was the content of people's character versus the color of their skin. That's what his issue was. And the guy, he died for it. He peacefully protested, did what he did. He died for it, but it still advanced the black cause. He did so in a way that he did it legally. He didn't loot. He didn't kill, steal, destroy people's lives for the purposes of getting stuff, like those looters did, the BLM looters did, and Antifa did when they just destroyed everything. That's not what MLK did. So when you have these people who are disenfranchised, are trying to use their voice and the means necessary that are given to us legally via the votes and via the ability from our First Amendment to protest and the right to assemble, what happens is, psychologically, as another group of people who actually is the minority, another group of people are imposing upon these other people, the 74 million people, their will upon these people. What's happened is people are now frustrated to the point of needing to get their voice heard. This is not the same as the black grievance. It's not the same. And the reason why it's not the same is there are not all these black people are having the same experience. It's just not the truth. Not all black people have the same experiences, and that's what is so weird about the racial grievance stuff, that I'm a black dude. I've had some of the same experiences, but I have a completely different perspective on it. So it just is what it is. Not all gay people have the same experience. Not all white people have the same experience. And white privilege, what about the white folks who are in trailers who are freaking poor? They make up the greatest number of people who are on welfare and who are poor. Okay, so what does that look like? So the whole generalizations, they just don't work. But let me get back onto this, okay? When you see what happened yesterday, you see the inconsistent definition of words, the inconsistent definition of truth, the inconsistent definition of honesty, then what happens is people lose hope and they lose all bearings on what's true in this society. And the only ones who are going to pay the price for that is you and me. The people who are taking advantage of these situations are not you and me. The people who are taking advantage of this stuff are the politicians, the elite. That's why, understandably, when I have friends who are on the other side of the aisle, who we disagree with one another, but we still are cordial, we still have discussions, but we don't need to attack one another. You see where there is commonality, and you see whether you're black or white, or whether you're part of the grievance culture, whatever, you may not understand that what's happening to one group of people is going to happen to you as well. And every single one of us is in the same exact freaking boat. And there's going to only be one winner of all this stuff. And as you blame Donald Trump for all these things, you have to understand what you're doing is you're glossing over the truth of how your definitions and your redefining things, your redefining terms, is leading to the demise of your freedom. Your freedom's going to be taken away because you are so partisan in this stuff. And you will be the one that pays the price for this. And this is what I'm trying to say, what I've been trying to say this whole time. If you can't define the terms and then be the same terms for everyone, and there's not the same outcome, I'm not a freaking communist or socialist, but you are not given the same definitions for all these things, then what happens is you will be subject to these people. There'll be a detriment to you and your health and what happens to you and your family. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for myself either. But I don't want you to think that, hey, this is only going to be against Trump supporters, because right now the media is trying to paint all Trump supporters as seditious or, terrorists and stuff like that. These people are freaking ridiculous. But that's what the media has done. And they've silenced a group of people that are massive in this nation. And whether or not you want to recognize it or not, and people who are Trump supporters, do not be afraid to be a Trump supporter right now. Don't be afraid of it. And support the man, and don't let the people who think that their virtue outweighs what happened yesterday. Their virtue was nowhere when all these things were happening to our society, the American society, this last year. Their virtue was nowhere. And now all of a sudden they're so virtuous. It's ridiculous, and like, some people try to say it's hypocritical. Well, let me look at that hypocrisy right there in its face. That's all I'm trying to say to you today is, one, first of all, be encouraged, stand up for what you believe, and don't be afraid to have an opinion. And if you are upset at me for having my opinions, that's totally fine. You don't need to be on my social media. And whether or not you want to be my friend in real life or not, that's your choice. I can still be your friend and have differences of opinion. And I don't want you to feel like, like you can't express yourself to me, because obviously if I can't express myself to you, then we really weren't friends. We really weren't, okay? And that's okay. We were acquaintances for a little while, and that's cool. That it was for a good time. And I'm hoping that you do well, okay? But I'm just trying to say this to you right now. Inconsistency is leading to what's happening in our nation. And inconsistency is going to lead to further things happening to this nation against people who look just like you and me. It's going to be a bad thing, and I don't want that to happen, but it is what it is. And once that does happen, just understand that there's one side of this right now that's asking for stuff. They're pushing upon another side, but they're not realizing that they're going to be subject to that same stuff later on. Just being real with you.